swing for the quarter pole. And it's New York Traffic with Modernist toward the inside. Charging now is Mailman Money with Major Fed. They come down to the final furlong. It's Modernist who's holding on to a short lead from between horses. New York Traffic on the outside, Mailman Money, and Major Fed is storming home. It's Modernist toward the inside for Junior Alvarado. Major Fed closing, New York Traffic gamely, and then Mailman Money. It's Modernist and Junior Rivera, and Junior Alvarado at 12-1. Modernist has won it.
Welcome back to another Kentucky Derby preview here on Racing Rundown. Today we're going to be talking about Major Fed, who, I don't think that Major Fed's another horse that, of the horses that I've talked about, at least myself, max player, enforceable. I think that Major Fed is another one of those horses that isn't a win contender, but there is definitely reasons to look at Major Fed. I think, a horse that I'm always looking for in the Kentucky Derby is horses like your Instilled Regards and the two 50-1 morning line long shots, Golden Soul and Commanding Curve that Dallas Stewart took to the Kentucky Derby, ran second with in 2013 and 14. I'm looking for horses like those that are really big long shots, really, really deep closers that have the potential to run big races in the Kentucky Derby. And I think Major Fed is definitely going to be a horse like that. I think Major Fed, coming from way far back, he's your street sense, he's your mind that bird type closer. You look at several races, including the Louisiana Derby, he was absolutely last in that race. He is a bit of a head scratcher, but, I'm going to talk about his efforts and what I think of him going into this Kentucky Derby. First start came last year at Churchill Downs. He was third, beaten 7 lengths by Gold Street, who is a two-time stakes winner. Not both of those stakes were non-graded, but he won a race at the Fairgrounds and the Smarty Jones Stakes at Oaklawn. So Gold Street, pretty decent horse. Again, not really many good things to say about Gold Street, but because he has run two poor races since then, but is a two-time stakes winner. Second race closed into a really, really slow pace, and this is one of the things that I really like about Major Fed is he doesn't need a fast pace to be able to close into. And I think, if he gets a complete pace meltdown, then I think that's even more of a plus for him. But first win, he came from pretty far out of it. Wasn't last, but was fifth, only a length and a half in front of the the sixth and seventh place horses in the seventh horse field. Closed into a 114.65 3/4, so very slow. His next start, the Risen Star Stakes, closed into another slow pace, 112.62, set by Modernist, who didn't win that race wire to wire, but was pretty close to the front end, only a half length off the leader, New York Traffic. At one point throughout that race, he did ultimately go on to beat New York Traffic. And with what New York Traffic has done, I think that does say good things about Major Fed. The Matt Winn Stakes was the one race where it was a real head scratcher for him. He did have excuses, but I think ultimately, even with the excuses that he did have, I would have expected him to run a little bit better. Was last in that race, and that is something that is kind of discouraging me a little bit from using him, because I do think there are horses who are going to be similar odds to him that are smarter to use, for lack of a better term, at least in my eyes, it would be smarter for me to use that horse as opposed to as opposed to Major Fed, and that's the one reason why I'm completely holding off on saying he's a real type that you want to throw into the bottom of a trifecta or a superfecta, because like I mentioned, this horse is not going to be a win contender. But he did rebound in his next start, also coming from really, really far out of it in the Indiana Derby. He ultimately got beat by Shared Sense, who was a little bit closer to the pace in that race, but not much close, but still was closer than him. And Shared Sense ultimately got the victory. Major Fed is just the kind of horse that I don't think he's ever going to win a graded stakes race. I think he's the type of horse that can run underneath well in these regional grade 2s and grade 3 races. I don't think that Major Fed is a super obvious jump off the board type to use underneath. I think that there are definitely going to be, as we get closer to the Derby, I think that there's other horses that definitely fit the bill better than that. But if you're just looking at him from the purpose of, I want to find the instilled regard or the country house of this year's Kentucky Derby, and you're just purely looking at the odds and you're just purely looking at what he's done in his best efforts, which, if you're looking for that, then I would point you at the Louisiana Derby and I would point you at the Risen Star, because those, I think, are what show of what Major Fed's going to do. And also worth mentioning, I believe I skipped over the Louisiana Derby, but in that race, the merry-go-round that was set by Wells Bayou New York Traffic, he closed into that fourth. Very, very good closing effort. He ultimately did get beat out by Modernist for third, but it was only by a half a length, and he beat Enforceable, who I think is a more talented horse than him, by a length in finishing fourth. So if you're just looking at charts and you're just looking at his best efforts and at the number, then I think he's going to be a good enough number that you can justify to yourself, if you can swallow the Matt Winn stakes, which I'm not necessarily willing to swallow the Matt Winn when there's horses that I think are a little bit more attractive than him. But if you're willing to swallow the Matt Winn, and depending on what the number is going to be, I think the number is going to be pretty high up there, and you're just looking for a horse that's coming from very far out of it, which is exactly what Major Fed's going to want to do in this race. If you're looking for that, then he's the horse that I could point to you. But ultimately, I think there's smarter horses to go with. I think that there's horses that do fit the same archetype as him, that do have more consistent efforts. But if you like Major Fed for that, I can't fault you. In the past, I really did like him, and I thought that he was definitely a real contender to run like it's still regarded a country house race in this Kentucky Derby. I just don't think that he's the best candidate for a race like that. But if you do, all the power to you. If you do decide to bet him, good luck. And that's all I have for this preview. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Good luck if you do play him, and have a good one.
Top of the stretch here in the Indiana Derby, and it's Shared Sense on the outside Necker Island, and then it is Erner towards the fence as they got 1 furlong to go, and it's Shared Sense striking the front and has the lead, but Major Fed is surging late on the outside up in the second deep stretch. It's Shared Sense for Godolphin. Shared Sense wins the Indiana Derby.